What is going on, TSS San Antonio? My name is Shai. Welcome to episode 2 of the podcast. I know it's been a while, but we're here now. We got a great lineup of people coming up. What better guest than that we could have on the second episode than the new champ, Ashton. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me.
Good, well, absolutely. And then Davion here again, as both of us are here. So how was this latest championship? Tell us about that. How was your flight getting over there? What was your experience like on that platform and everything in between, kind of thing?
Yeah, no, I mean it was a fantastic experience. First of all, the meet was very efficient. It was very well run. The judging and everything, I mean, wasn't actually as bad as people I think it is.
Yeah.
Once you're actually there on the ground, you see the lifts in person. It kind of changes the perspective a little bit. The travel there was fine too. It took me about 20 hours to get to Lithuania from here.
First time in Lithuania?
Yes. That was my first time in Lithuania. Not my first time. I've been in Europe several times, but that was my first time in Lithuania specifically. It was a beautiful country, so it was an awesome place to be in, aside from just competing in general. But yeah, no, I mean, it was honestly a lot of it, except for the way back, kind of went pretty smooth, I'd say.
Yeah. Why? What happened on the way back?
Lots of delays and lots of very, very long layovers. It took me 35 hours to get back home.
Oh, wow.
I got back home really late, and I had to go to work the next morning. So.
You had to go to work the next day, immediately the next day. And it being Wednesday right now, and you just competed how many days ago?
I competed Friday.
Friday? You're already back
5-6
at it.
days ago.
Is this your first day back already training?
No, Monday was.
Really?
Yeah, the day after I got back.
Really?
Yeah.
How does that work in a sense of like, just competing at such a high level and then already getting back into training just so like such a fast turnaround?
Very fluently?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the big things is, I mean, right now, I'm not really doing anything particularly crazy. That's one thing. And then the other thing too is, the meet, I didn't have to scrape kind of top end strength for all the lifts. So I think I've been able to recover from the meet a lot better because of that. Like I didn't have to put up a crazy or a PR total to win.
Oh, not that's what would a crazy PR total be, sir?
What a crazy.
Yeah, well,
anything north of like 980,
okay.
that would be like a really good. I got very close to that in September. I was going against Bob and Keenan there. I think I was like a white light away from like a 990 or a 985. That would have been like, if I did that, replicated that at this meet or more, that would be like, to me, that'd be pretty crazy. But anything less than that was within the realm of possibility.
That's insane, Ash.
Yeah.
What was Lithuania like? Did you get to look around, check out anything?
I did. I got to really check out all of Druskininkai and what it had to offer. That was the town that we were in. It was kind of like a sleepy, smaller town. It was very quaint, beautiful nature. It was very green. The air was very clean. All the restaurants were really good there. Everything that I ate there was great. It was fresh. Everything tasted, not modified by modern science. The weather was wonderful too. The temperature was great. It was great overall. There were beautiful churches there too.
Yeah.
I actually proposed to my fiance at a church there in Druskininkai.
Congratulations. That's awesome.
Man.
Yeah, thanks.
That's so awesome.
It was a good time. So I loved it, man. Lithuania was a very cool place. All the people were very friendly. There was actually a lot of research done, on countries and happiness, and people under 30, one of the happiest places in the world is Lithuania right now.
Interesting.
And for people of any age, Lithuania is a contender for a top spot on that list.
Right.
To add on to that, what is it that you do for a living?
I'm active duty Army.
Active duty Army.
So this makes you the strongest military member in the United States, right?
I mean, if any of them can total what I do or more, but I don't know about that.
So, I mean, in a sense, like, first and foremost, congratulations. Everyone here in TSS San Antonio. I'm really proud of your accomplishment, and then you also doing some of your training here, if not majority. Now, let's take it back a little bit. How did you get into powerlifting? Where did it all start? And then when did you know that this was something that you could be competitive in?
Yeah. I started powerlifting when I was 16 years old. I was living in Anchorage, Alaska at the time. I had just turned 16. I did a competition at the urging of a wrestling coach who was like, "Hey, you're really strong. You should try this out." I was like, "All right." So tried that meet out. Did an American record, I think, team deadlift that first meet, and just kind of kept competing since then. I figured I love lifting. I love strength training. I seem to be good at it. So, maybe I can, make something out of this. So I kept doing it.
What's the rest of the year look like for you as far as competition-wise and training?
I probably won't be competing for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which this will probably be the longest break that I take from competing, probably in years. It may be close. Well, I have to think about last year. I went from March till, this will be the longest in several years. So it'll give me about a 7-month period between the World Championship and Sheffield, which is going to take place in the Sheffield in the UK.
Yeah.
That's kind of the next target. And then after that, the goal is to win the World Games for heavyweight men in August.
Which one do you feel means more? Like, obviously Sheffield, there's a lot of money involved. With World Games, other than the title, what else comes along with that? Or is it primarily just, obviously, winning that? It's a little bit different in terms of the way the stipulations is. It's like just lightweight and heavyweight.
Right.
So there's not really weight classes or anything involved. Which one means more to you?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting, and I have to see actually how they do the World Games breakdown, because I know they do weight classes, but I think they split them up into heavyweight, lightweight, and then middle, and then super heavy. I think that's kind of like the breakdown of the 4 categories, and 2 weight classes are in each one. For me, the World Games is a very rare and exclusive opportunity. As of now, Sheffield is happening once annually.
Yeah.
I don't know if that frequency will decrease or if they start to change the stipulations and the pipeline to get into that meet. But the World Games is kind of what it is. It just happens once every 4 years. Again, very exclusive event. I think it would be really cool to win that, kind of more than anything for legacy. I think it would add to the resume that I've built over the years, for sure.
You think if you won World Games, you would hang it up, or you'd keep lifting at some point? I mean, it's just squat, bench, deadlift. Do you ever get tired of it? Like, at that point, you win World Games. You've kind of achieved everything in powerlifting, with the exception of Sheffield, if you win or not win that one. But throughout your entire lifting career, if you go win Sheffield, if you go win World Games, at that point, do you feel like you'd be ready to move on to something else, or would you continue, with powerlifting?
That's a good question. I've thought about the World Games potentially being my last meet, or one of my last meets. Maybe competing for a year or 2 more after that. If I do continue to compete after the World Games, there's a pretty high probability that I'll go down a weight class. That way I can do something else still.
Yeah.
And I can cut down to, 210 or 215. And then whenever I want to compete, I can just do 205. Yeah. Or if I went back to USAPL after that, I could do 220.
Yeah.
Because I'm not going to 198. I'm not going below 200.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's something I've definitely thought about. I've been doing this for so long, and fortunately, it hasn't gotten boring, but some parts, have sucked more than others.
Yeah.
I'd say the last few months have sucked a lot more than others, just because I was nursing some injuries and kind of recovering and stuff like that. Last summer, and then, COVID, there were other times where it was great and I was on fire and training was amazing.
Yeah.
But, things happen, and it's part of the game, as you guys know.
You mind elaborating on a few of those injuries that you've dealt with throughout the past couple months?
Yeah, I mean, it was just mostly related to, honestly, upper, lower, and mid. So basically my entire back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More in a strenuous, like it's being strained kind of thing, or anything like.
Yeah, definitely strain for sure.
Okay.
Pretty significant strains too. I mean, you talk about going from squatting 800 for 3 to like not being able to doing 225 and like 135 even, and like almost passing out.
Yeah.
Because of like how it feels, and then still going up and trying to train because you have meets to do.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I was doing for a while.
Seeing you train, it's kind of even hard to imagine that 135 or even 225 would ever be difficult for you.
Yeah. I mean, it happens to the best of us.
Yeah.
And since I kept competing for so many years, so often, I just never had really an opportunity to just kind of recover and feel completely healthy. So I'm really hoping that between now and Sheffield, I can get to that point. Because, I mean, what the world sees is like, totals that I put up that are respectable, but it's not really my top end strength.
Yeah.
I mean, it's hard to put that up if you're not, entirely 100% or healthy,
Yeah.
or even 90%. So,
During that time, obviously Marcellus was your coach, right?
yeah.
What were ways that y'all had to navigate in order to mitigate inflammation or re-injury at that point? Because obviously through your lifting post, I saw there were definitely some times where, you were definitely disappointed with the way things were going and obviously the pain that you were dealing with. Yeah, what was the plan around all that?
Yeah, we had to be very strategic. A lot of the planning around that was, it mostly boiled down to programming. One of the things that you always want to look at is lifestyle, right? So what's going on outside of the gym? What are the stressors? How much are they sleeping? How much are they eating? And there were just simply things in my lifestyle that we can't necessarily control or account for all the time, such as, sleep, sometimes eating, sometimes stressors in work. Like there are just times where it's just a lot more hectic for me, and that's just the nature sort of the profession that I chose.
Yeah.
So if we can't change those, the next best thing we can do is change the programming, right? So we alter the programming significantly, and sometimes almost week by week, sometimes we would change things just because we were finding that certain things were working, certain things weren't working, or making the problem worse, and we don't want to exaggerate the problem. We want to hang on to strength as much as we can and at least feel good on the day. That way we can lift the best we can. Because, I have, the bone structure, the muscle mass. I mean, I have, the size already. It's just a matter of feeling good enough to actually lift the heavy weight. And I would rather train a lot lighter for the majority of my training and then feel really good on the day and put up heavier weight than try to push and just train heavier, injure myself more and more and more, than just not be able to perform when it matters.
So does that look like starting at a lower baseline at the beginning of the block?
Far lower.
Yeah.
Far lower, and removing days and removing things and slowly, incrementally adding those things back in as time went on.
Gotcha.
Which now we're pretty much back to a near normal training schedule, which has been really good for at least like the last few weeks.
Nice.
Did you have a hard time taming it or tapering it back a little bit, just knowing the end game in mind within, your day-to-day training in a sense of your flow?
Honestly, not really, because if I didn't do that, it would be a lot more painful than it was.
Gotcha.
And I didn't really want to do that. So.
And you're seasoned enough to know, the end goal.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can go into a gym, and by the time I, lift 500 pounds, I can tell how 800 usually is going to go with like pretty good accuracy. I mean, you can't always be 100% about those things, but I generally have a very good idea because I'm very comfortable with my body and how it works.
Was it a shock to you how meet day went?
Honestly, not really.
No.
Squats landed right around what I expected. I mean, I didn't attempt a max. I just attempted what was necessary. Bench press, not too surprising. I kind of know why that happened, why it didn't go so well. That was mostly because we actually cut the intensity a little bit too much on the block going into Worlds for bench press. And for me, to hit top end weights more comfortably, I have to bench a little bit heavier, the higher frequency. So that was a mistake that we made. A small mistake. It's like splitting hairs, but it's good data. Deadlifts actually went it felt a little easier than I thought on the day. I didn't pull 800 this prep at all. And only 804 was required to win, and I've done much, much more than that in competition. So, 804 was very easy. It flew right up, and that was the win.
Yeah.
No meet day discrepancies that had you worried about anything? Warm-ups felt good?
Warm-ups felt great. I was honestly I was very posed, and I felt in control the entire time.
You looked like it.
Of the pacing,
Very locked then.
Yeah, I was not panicked at all. Like, I didn't feel too nervous.
Nice.
Even going out for my first squat, I was like, I destroyed warm-ups.
Yeah.
My body feels good today. I'm not in big pain. This is going to go well.
There was a part of me that was like, I wonder if this is actually going to be quite interesting after seeing Anatoly squat and all that. Baseline, it was pretty high. I didn't expect for him to open up with what he did. But yeah, it was interesting to see how like squat went between the both of you.
Right. And to your point, I think to his detriment, I think they played those squats pretty aggressively, and I think that costed him a bit on the deadlift. I mean, dude, I've squatted like 840 in the meet, and I would never open with 350 if I was squatting 840. I opened much lighter than that.
Yeah.
He took 3 big squats. I took one kind of big squat for me. So I had plenty in the tank for deadlifts.
That's also the craftsmanship approach, though.
Yeah.
Those big, ginormous jumps.
A little bit more conservative and bigger jumps, and it's very effective. You know, there's energy conservation. I do just enough to feel comfortable with the weight. You know, by the time I get to heavier weights.
Now, how is that coaching athlete dynamic between you and Marcellus? Like, has it been a very like a great experience kind of thing? I mean, it's obviously showing, you know, in a sense of like your recent performance. Is it something you're looking forward to build on to going into Sheffield as well and everything? You know.
Yeah, I mean, we've been working together for several years now.
Yeah.
And time has really gone by pretty quickly working together. But I mean, we've been able to achieve and accomplish a lot. And year over year, we've put up, you know, PR totals, even if by a little bit.
Yeah.
So in competition, in training, I think we've already passed 1,000 technically, if we just, you know, took the 3 biggest lifts we've done in training. So the progress it's there, it's great. And obviously, again, as I mentioned earlier, there's, you know, lifestyle variables that we can't necessarily control for.
Yeah.
It's just, it can't be helped. So, you know, we do what we can and we work around that. And we constantly have to work around that. We constantly brainstorm, we constantly collaborate in order to figure out how to best approach the next steps in order to continue to remain successful.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's kind of 2 great minds coming together and kind of making it happen.
And it's what it looks like from the outside. You know, it seems like great chemistry, and you know, it's just showing.
You know, looking at you, you kind of look like a superhero.
Yeah.
And this might be a little weird, but yeah, like if you were a superhero and you had to have some like, say you have this useless ability. I don't know why a superhero would want to have some useless ability, but if you had to have one, what do you think it would be?
It's a great question. It's not a bad question.
It would be to,
Useless.
yeah. Well, I mean, most things you can twist them to be useful.
Okay. Yeah.
Right. Like, because in my mind initially was like, oh well, just have gum randomly appear in my pocket. Like I can will it, and bubble gum will just appear in my pocket. Chewing gum. And then it's like, well, if you're talking to someone and they have bad breath, you guys are fine. Then you can just give them that stick of gum. You're putting, hey man, I got some gum. Just take this. You know what I mean? That's kind of, my mind immediately went there. I don't know why, but it did.
Yeah, well, speaking of like or I guess, right? Nutrition. How is that like? How do you incorporate that within your training and your programming and all that? Are you very like macro heavy and everything like that? Are you just vacuum cleaner?
No, I eat. I mean, honestly, okay. Like, I do think that, you know, meticulous, you know, kind of practical approach to dieting is probably very useful for a lot of people. For me, the food that I consume is not really junk anyways. I mean, I eat a lot of meat, you know, rice, noodles, vegetables, fruits. I mean, I don't really eat a ton of garbage.
Yeah.
I eat a lot of like natural foods. So, I mean, at the end of the day, diet has never really been a problem for me.
Was that something that, like, you know, growing up, was that like within your household, y'all were eating fairly clean, so it became like an easy transition as you became an adult yourself?
Well, I mean, growing up, I didn't really eat a whole lot.
I can't imagine that.
I mean, I would say it was more so a thing that I instilled in myself.
Okay.
Just to eat well.
Yeah.
And, you know, every now and then, you know, I like cake, cheesecake, sweets, but
Okay.
sushi. Well, sushi's quite healthy.
Yeah.
And I know how to have those things in moderation. So
Okay. See, I don't.
Yeah.
I mean, I also like beer. I like bear and cigars, though. I mean, we think we all have our, you know, I like whiskey too. We all have our thing, right?
Yeah.
You know, for me, it's whiskey, beer, and cigars.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I was about to say, what's your poison if you have any at all?
Those.
Yeah.
Well, what
Like,
beer?
if you offered me a beer right now before I go train, I'd have it.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
100%.
You know, I just competed this past weekend, and I had beer throughout. Like, no disrespect to the sport or anything like that. It was just kind of the setting, and it just kind of like happened. So by the time I got to my last deadlift, I was 8 beers in,
Yeah.
and I went 8 for 9.
Yeah.
That could be an interesting case study.
Well, it's really interesting because honestly, when you look at old time, strongmen and lifters and stuff like that from like the early 20th century, a lot of them would drink beer during and
Yeah.
before their workouts. It's a very common thing back then. They were extra carbs and liquid calories. I mean, it's not
I
the
felt
worst
great.
thing in the world. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, I was actually drinking. I had beer all week while I was in Lithuania. I wasn't going to go to Lithuania, not drink local European beer. Like that would have been a waste of a trip. I had beer every single day I was in Lithuania.
I'm right there
I
with you.
performed just fine.
Now, I don't think it's bad, but there was a time I feel like it did bite you
There was.
in Vegas.
Yeah, but that wasn't beer. That was like everything. That was like every liquor you could think of, everything, and that was the whole week in Las Vegas, right?
Yeah.
Which I don't regret either because that made that Las
Had a
Vegas
good
trip
time.
memorable. Yeah,
Yeah.
Responsibly, of course, but it was a very fun trip. I still walked away with that win. That's what mattered.
Yeah.
Obviously not my best day, but it was good enough to do the job. So,
Yeah.
but I don't do that anymore. But it was a good time.
It's still a weird question, right? So on Monday morning when you walked into work, did all your coworkers kind of know about your accomplishment that you just achieved in Lithuania?
Yeah, they were asking me a lot of questions
Yeah,
about it. And,
they were like, "Yeah, we got the strongest person, like 105 in the world, right here, right now."
yeah,
And
it was kind of like that.
that's awesome. Can you imagine just going into the office like one of the strongest in the world right now? That's awesome.
It was good. It was a good time.
Yeah.
What are your interests outside of powerlifting? Obviously, you said you like beer and cigars.
I do. And
what-
whiskey.
And whiskey. What other activities besides drinking and the occasional cigar? What else do you like to do?
Yeah, well, I love grilling and barbecuing.
Oh,
Okay.
So I do that pretty often. I'll invite, close, family, friends over. You guys should come sometime. My house isn't too far from here.
Yeah.
I like to grill, love to barbecue. Really, I could be doing anything in the world, to be honest, as long as I'm with, a group of people that I really care about, that care about me.
that's beautiful.
That's really what I have the most fun doing, is just being around people. Relationships are, by far the most important thing in life. So it's kind of what I lean towards, just doing anything with them. With that said, other things I enjoy doing, my profession, psychologist,
Yeah.
very much like to study. I'm very interested in human behavior, very interested in just science in general, mathematics as well. Big horror fan. Love horror. Love going to the movie theater, especially by myself or just with my fiance. It's a cathartic experience. It's very enjoyable for me. It's peaceful. I can kind of turn my brain off for a little bit when I have to work, really hard very often.
Yeah.
Love to travel too. There's a list of things I could kind of go on with.
Nice.
Any other sport that you've thought about that you could step into, in a sense of like powerlifting? It's not that it's our world here, but in the grand scheme of things, it turns into being like a niche kind of category.
Yeah.
In a
I have
sense.
like kind of a top 3.
Oh yeah.
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 So it'd either be CrossFit or I'd go back into Taekwondo or boxing. One of those 3.
All 3 would be sound amazing. I would love to see you in all 3 of those. And it sounds like, how was your endurance? And conditioning.
When I was like doing very, very good.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah. Especially that's what I'm training. Like if I'm actually training, that way and I'm actually, actually working on endurance and elongating it, it's very, very good.
I bet you have a rowdy hip throw. Like if you're doing some kind of like
very good
wrestling.
kick.
Yeah.
Very good
I
kicker.
bet you do.
Good puncher, but I would say I'm a very, very good kicker.
Okay.
Yeah.
How's your mobility? Like,
Very good.
Can you
Very
really?
high. Yeah. Still very good.
Wow.
I can't imagine you kicking somebody
Yeah.
or just like in any sort of MMA. I think I'd be very like traumatized and scared. Yeah.
Yeah. Even if we're in a boxing match, I'll be like throwing in the white towel. I'll be like, Davion, throw the towel in. I'm done. I'm not gonna.
I've lights out people a couple of times.
Really? That's awesome. Would you ever really would you ever consider stepping into one of those outside of, because I know
No, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Those would be one of the 3 sports I would do.
Okay. Which is there a ranking?
Not yet.
Okay.
I'm still kind of going back and forth.
Gotcha.
CrossFit is probably actually, well, it depends. Maybe boxing. Boxing and CrossFit would be the most lucrative.
Yeah.
CrossFit Games, you win that. That's like $310,000+. And I think
Really?
I'd have a good shot at doing really well there.
Really?
Yeah.
How long do you feel like you would need to train and recomp your body before you're competitive at that level?
Couple years.
Couple years?
You still going rucks and whatnot?
We'll
Yeah.
go to the restroom real quick. I'll be
Go
right
for
back.
it.
Y'all
Have
keep
at it.
going.
Shy has to leave us because he has a small bladder. He'll be back shortly. What's one of your biggest goals in life? What do you plan to achieve? I guess before you walk away from this earth, what's the one thing that you want to see through fruition?
I think there's three things. One is to ensure and secure that I have a family and legacy. Number two is to be able to look back on the life that I've led and to be proud of it. And number three is to have made a meaningful, positive change in the world. And that could be with one person or that could be with 1 million people.
What do you think that positive change is that you can add to the universe? Obviously, everybody has like their own belief of like change, impact, success. What is that for you?
I think, well, sport is one good way to do it, right? You know, when athletes that perform well in their stories, they tend to inspire people.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I meet people that I have inspired, I do my best to live up to what, you know, they think that I am, and maybe to be even better than that. Sometimes if the perception is negative, if it's the other way, for whatever reason. Because it's one thing to be good at a sport and to inspire people because you're good at it, but it's another thing to carry yourself with tact and class and, you know, respect for other people no matter what level they're at. And, you know, it really draws them in, you know, further and deeper, and it makes them want to emulate those qualities and characteristics.
Yeah.
And the more people that are like that, the better our world's probably going to be anyway, right?
Of course. How has your like background and career in psychology like help you with powerlifting? Because obviously powerlifting is a huge psychological aspect of powerlifting. With you being a skilled professional in that field.
Yeah, one, I tend to not panic very much.
Yeah.
I can see that.
I can like pretty much keep it under wraps. Two, I have very good emotional mastery, so I can get, you know, very angry or aggressive or hyped up, almost like at will.
Yeah.
You know, I have a very good control over that switch, and I can turn it right back off and be right back, you know, here again in seconds. That helps because powerlifting, it's really just seconds.
Yeah.
Like you're on a platform and doing the lift and then walking off. So you need to be able to do that. And, you know, if you're doing that over a period of a couple of hours, then you need to be able to turn it on and off. You can't just keep it on for 2.5, 3 plus 4 hours straight.
Yeah.
You know, you'll get exhausted by the end of it. So being emotional control, so lack of panicking, emotional control, mastery. And then the other thing is psychology of the other people, right? You know,
that's a big aspect,
and you can influence that, you know, very subtly through certain ways. Like, for example, I work very much to not just be a good powerlifter, but to appear like I'm a good powerlifter. When people look at me and they go, that guy's probably like a powerlifter or something.
Yeah.
Right? Because there's just something about a guy that just looks really strong, that shows up. And if you don't look like him, it's like, yikes. Like, am I going to beat this guy? Like, am I really going to, like, we're lifting weights together. Like, am I going to beat that? You know what I mean? It's very subtle. And it maybe even sits with them for just a split second. Maybe it goes away because they're like, nah, I've hit these numbers in training. I'm good. I'm going to, you know, run with it.
I'm glad that you elaborated on that. Do you feel anxiety before you compete? Like, obviously, there are aspects where, you know, and I'm not even saying like in a bad way, just anxious.
Like being able
maybe
to hide it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like obviously, like maybe you don't get a good night's rest the day before you lift.
This is also where emotional mastery comes in. It's good to be able, there's a certain level of anxiety, of feeling anxious, of feeling worried, that actually helps boost your performance to the highest level it can possibly go.
Okay.
So for example, if you're totally apathetic and you don't care, you have no anxiety, how are you going to perform at your absolute best?
Yeah.
But if you're like, oh man, I need to be able to perform at my absolute best, or I'm going to lose, therefore I have to train harder, I have to do this, I have to do that. Now you're a little anxious, you're starting to worry. But because you're doing all these extra little things that you wouldn't have done if you were apathetic, now your performance is probably going to go to the next level. You know,
Okay.
assuming that you don't kind of tip over that scale where you're too anxious, and then it negatively affects your performance. So yes, I do feel anxiety. I do feel nervous before competitions because I care. I'm invested. I want to win, but not so much to where it cripples me.
That's interesting. I have a hard time controlling that, but I feel like with this experience this past weekend, I was able to, with what you said, I was able to like apply it and be able to perform. Kind of had the different fears or whatever to like alleviate that, but that's very awesome that you're able to contain it and all that. I think two things of what you were saying earlier, two things before we wrap. One, when you were saying how you're able to control things and you can turn it on and off on a switch. I don't know if anyone's told you this, but I feel like there's two career paths where I feel like you would be good at. One would be acting, and the other one would be a poker player. I feel like you would be just as equally good at those two as you are at powerlifting. But I guess one of my last questions, I don't know if y'all covered it while I went to go drain the main vein, would be, you were UTSA powerlifting alumni, right? How do you feel that experience? Like, okay, so fast forward from your experience there to today, what do you feel carried that passion in your subject matter to be able to still perform at the level that you perform today? Because my association has been very limited in the sense of like, coming on the past 4 years, and then me and Davion talk about this where, we see this kind of like drop off happen. Like
after university.
People get their careers, yada, yada, yada. How have you been able to maintain or, keep that fire alive in a sense,
I mean, when I set certain goals, and so many goals I've set years ago, I don't just really like give up on them, or I don't really stop, I keep going until I, accomplish the mission, achieve the goal, whatever it is. There were things that went into motion many years ago, years before even college, that I've yet to accomplish and I'm still working towards. So, collegiate lifting wasn't going to be the end all be all for me. With that said, loved collegiate lifting, loved collegiate nationals every year. That was a ton of fun. Doing it for UTSA, I don't think I could have done it for a better school. And, I mean, even my, career as a 105, 110, like lifter, 100, like that kind of started towards the tail end of collegiate, lifting. And I had a great send-off meet from collegiate nationals, that year. And I was president that year, and it was just all kind of a beautiful experience, and it culminated into this great meet. And that like kick-started this, awesome career that I've had in lifting post, university.
I'm assuming this answers my next question of what was your best experience as a Roadrunner powerlifter?
Oh yeah, it was definitely,
that
last collegiate nationals. Yeah.
Well, winning 93 equipped collegiate champion, competed raw.
Yeah, raw with wraps. Sink.
Raw with
Yeah.
because you got these big calves.
Yeah,
I deal with the same problem.
Yeah, back then, equipped. I did equipped, but I did it. Yeah, raw with wraps. I won that year, and then that last year was the first. That was the only year I did raw.
Okay.
Even though they had raw for years.
Yeah.
That I won.
Any last questions? Well, I just want to say officially, in a sense, on behalf of TSS, and my short timeline with it, I can already say this and state it. We're incredibly proud of you and all your accomplishment. I think you're a great example to have within these walls because I have this like belief that you could be the strongest lifter in the world, right? But it's also who you are outside of it, beyond the platform in itself, and you bring all that together in its own symphony of its own,
right.
And I think that's very hard in the sense of like, one, I'm fascinated about it and look up to you, in a sense of you being able to be such a badass on and off the platform. So I just want to say thank you for also training here. And then, you also mean a lot to a lot of the athletes that do come here. And I hope they pick up not only what you do on the platform, but what you also do outside of it, So we really want to thank you, from the TSS SATX, community kind of thing.
Yeah, thanks for, continuing to upkeep and have this awesome gym to train at.
Thank
Couldn't
you
have done
for
it
your
without TSS.
contributions. Ashton's actually has donated quite a bit of stuff to the gym, a few bars, a few different pieces of equipment. So thank you for adding on to what we have here as well.
Yeah. Anything to make it better.
Mhm.
I hope everyone enjoyed this episode. We actually, we look forward to, let's talk after Sheffield,
Yeah.
kind of thing. We would love to have you back, as we want to, after the first episode, we had like a little break. There was like, some transitional pit season, but we got a great episode next week, and then hopefully another great episode a week after that. We kind of want to do these twice a month, or at least once a month, kind of thing, amongst the other things we have planned or up my sleeve in a sense. So
All right.
thank you so much, Ashton, for your time.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.